out of bullets already too. What the fuck? This game.
God. This run is not going well out.
No, this run sucks.
Yes.
Because that should be the third one I get. God damn it. Oh, there was a... Wait. There was a third one. Holy shit, maybe I'm not tripping out. I'm just going blind. I don't even know what's going on anymore. Kind of on track. Oh my god, the missile guys, get out of here. Duke, the Dukester. No ammo.
Primitive version of Persona 3.
Ammo would be super cool. Nice. Okay. Never know. Could get extremely lucky. Although, luck is not one of my specialties. Okay.
This is...
Costa Rica means rich coast in Spanish.
Is it true that Columbus was the one who came up with the name?
Your guess is as good as mine. But it is true that Columbus landed his ships near Limon back in the age of exploration. He wrote in his diary that when he landed, the indigenous showered him with gifts of gold. Hence the name. It sounds a little strange to me. There's no way they could find that much gold in Costa Rica.
Columbus originally set sail in search of the legendary land of gold. Maybe he was just nuts about the stuff.
Costa Rica is rich enough without it. Look at the forests and the animals and the peace-loving people. That is what I want to protect.
I know how you feel.
Survival horror or some shit, man.
Democracy took root in Costa Rica before anywhere else in Central America. Sure, we had coup and dictators and all, but never a total meltdown. That is, until 26 years ago.
The Civil War. Yeah. I understand you lost your grandparents.
It started with a dispute over alleged fraud in the presidential election. What I do not understand is why friend turned against friend, when they could have talked it out instead.
Yeah, that would have been nice.
Even today, some buildings still have bullet holes from the Civil War. A quarter century later, and it is a tragedy we Ticos cannot forget, must not forget. It was the year after the Civil War that the army was constitutionally abolished. Democracy took root in Costa Rica before anywhere else in Central America. Sure, we had coup and dictators and all, but never a total meltdown. That is, until 26 years ago.
The Civil War. Yeah. I understand you lost your grandparents.
It started with a dispute over alleged fraud in the presidential election. What I do not understand is why friend turned against friend, when they could have talked it out instead.
Yeah, that would have been nice.
Even today, some buildings still have bullet holes from the Civil War. A quarter century later, and it is a tragedy we Ticos cannot forget, must not forget. It was the year after the Civil War that the army was constitutionally abolished. A new president was elected this year, President Oteber. He seems to be distancing himself from the United States. He has limited the privileges granted to American banks, lifted the sanctions on Cuba. Our last president was so pro-US, people suspected he was in bed with the CIA.
You think the CIA is doing this because it feels threatened by the president's shift in policy?
It is possible, but would they really bring in such a huge army just because of that?
Part of our job is finding out.
Exactly. Thanks, Snake. Peace.
So, are you a student at the University for Peace, Paz?
No, I am still in high school. But Professor Galvez lets me visit his office and study with him every now and then. International law, security, conflict resolution, human rights. We study all these subjects and then use them to build the foundations of peace.
Yeah, I get it. I just never heard the UN had a University for Peace before.
Oh, that. Well, to be precise, it is still being set up. They have started conducting research, but the UN has not passed the necessary resolution. Professor Galvez couldn't wait that long.
Oh, right.
Costa Rica abolished its army and has also hosted the Central American Court of Justice. It is the perfect place to build a university like ours. Don't you think? Professor Galvez was a KGB spy? I thought he helped me out of genuine concern for Costa Rica's future.
You didn't know.
How could I? Believe me, Snake. He introduced himself as a peace researcher at the university. He had an office and credentials and everything.
They're masters at creating cover personas. They think of everything. ID papers, jobs, sometimes even families. Don't feel bad you didn't see through it.
But you did?
From the first time we met.
wish you had told me.
Sorry. I didn't know if it'd be right. You might have gotten mixed up in things you shouldn't.
That is impressive, though. Sizing him up at a single glance.
He reeked.
Reeked?
He had this unmistakable air about him. The air of someone who's been given a mission and will see it through no matter what. Like me. I could just smell it.
That is amazing, Snake.
I'm just kidding. It was his prosthetic hand. Why would a professor from a peace university need a tool for assassination?
Like I said, in a little bit, I'll get some sleep.
That coffee you guys brought us is pretty damn good.
Isn't it? Costa Rican coffee is the best. The Central Basin has all the right conditions for growing coffee. It is high in elevation, with steady temperatures and well-drained volcanic soils.
The professor certainly seems attached to it.
The coffee we drank on the boat coming over was awful. It put him in such a terrible mood.
Well, how come I never hear about Costa Rican coffee then?
Because it gets bought up by wholesalers and mixed with beans from other countries. It is really a shame. Such wonderful beans, and nobody knows they are from Costa Rica.
Huh. They should launch an ad campaign or something.
Right. I hope one day people will recognize Costa Rican coffee for what it is.
I'm with you there. Are there any large-scale ruins in Costa Rica, Paz?
There is a place east of Cartago called Guajabu. They have ruins there, but they're not especially big.
Not the place I'm thinking of. Any others?
Well, if you go a little way across the border into Nicaragua, there is a place called La Fortaleza de la Inmaculada Concepción. That is the only famous one.
Then what were those ruins I saw from up on Irasu?
There are a lot of things we still do not know about Costa Rica's ancient civilizations. There are giant stone spheres throughout the country. What they were used for is still a mystery.
If you die to someone who's sitting there in fucking God mode, speed hacking and fucking, jumping all around.
How long have you been up?
Obviously, I can understand getting mad at
Been up for a
that.
while,
But
haven't
if
you?
you're getting mad about dying in like a game like this when you're just getting killed by people like us,
No.
we're not hackers.
Where's everybody at?
Oh, I'm sorry. This is you, right?
I was asking how long you've been awake for. You seem like you've been in here quite a bit.
I've been awake for over 24 hours now.
Nice.
You
Kill
guys
this
on the
man
train
for
track.
the collection? I don't need to call out my dogs. It's alright. If he kills me, I'll be like, okay,
We just
kill me.
crossed. Yeah, we just
Then
crossed.
head over,
Where you
right?
guys at?
Okay. I'm running to the train track now. Oh, I see.
We're down the main road.
Paz, you said Costa Rica has no army, right?
Correct. Article 12 of the Constitution declared that the Army as a permanent institution is abolished. It does permit us to organize armed forces for national defense based on inter-American treaties.
Only temporarily, then.
In effect, yes. But in the years since the Constitution took effect, Costa Rica has not once raised an army.
Paz, how does your country defend itself without an army? Especially in a rough neighborhood like Central America.
With the right kind of diplomacy. If we live up to our ideals and earn the respect of other countries, the international community will support us. The 2 times Nicaragua actually did invade, the conflict was resolved diplomatically under OAS auspices.
Doesn't that leave you depending on the U.S. after all?
American influence is unmatched, it is true. San Jose was critical of American policy at the time, but America supported us all the same. It was because we practiced peaceful diplomacy. That is what I like to think.
That's one way to approach it, sure. But there are countries out there who will use force no matter how bad it looks.
Maybe so. I know my way of thinking probably looks naive to you, but it is not like we expect peace without working for it. Diplomacy is a battle in itself, and we have to make the effort to seek out causes of misfortune and nip them in the bud. It was that kind of thinking that got me trapped in their base.
I'm not blaming you. You haven't done anything wrong.
The army was abolished 25 years ago, the year after the Civil War. I learned about the sorrow of civil war from a very young age, the futility of countrymen fighting each other, and the tragedy. Costa Rica learned the hard way. That is why it abolished its army. It decided to pour its efforts into education instead. More teachers than soldiers was the slogan.
Education is essential, no question. Even Che used to teach reading and writing in between guerrilla campaigns.
Costa Rica was poor at the time. We did not have many resources. I suppose we had to pick one or the other. The military or the schools.
Kaz was telling me Japan has a peace constitution too.
That is right. Apparently, when Costa Rica was drafting its constitution, they looked to the Japanese as a model. Only, Japan's constitution renounces war itself.
Unlike Costa Rica.
But Japan has a self-defense force, right? That I do not get. I think I will ask Mr. Miller about it next time I see him. He said he used to be in the JSDF.
Huh. You're a curious one, are you? Don't study too hard. What was that you were saying? Peace is not the natural state of men. You said you learned it in school.
That is right. They are the words of the German philosopher Immanuel Kant. In 1795, he wrote a book titled Perpetual Peace. Kant argued that it is precisely because peace is unnatural that we have to make it ourselves.
How?
That is what his book is about. Is the concept starting to sound interesting now?
Not really. I belong in a more natural world.
Is that so? My grandparents died in the Civil War. If only we had been at peace, they would not have lost their lives. You actually wish for war?
It's not like I want to hurt innocent civilians, but if someone attacks you, what are you supposed to do? A country needs the strength to defend itself. Otherwise it faces invasion, oppression, political subjugation.
If they would simply stop using force to tangle with each other, countries would not need force to defend themselves.
And how would you guarantee that?
Sorry,
but you have to understand how the world works in order to protect the ones you love. That's not to say ideals aren't important too. They are.
You are right, Snake. Thanks. Peace. Costa Rica's forests are more diverse than you might expect. Not all of them are tropical rainforests. Costa Rica is close to the equator, it is true, but it is also very mountainous.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Go up 4,000 feet in elevation and the temperature drops more than 7 degrees.
There are basically 3 types of forests. The lowlands are covered in tropical rainforests, the highlands by tropical cloud forests, and areas where there's a dry season have tropical dry forests. The lowlands along the Caribbean coast are mostly covered by hot, humid tropical rainforests, what most people envision when they think of jungle. The closely packed trees spread their branches out at great heights to soak up the sun. Their shade makes it dark near the ground, so be careful. Of course, with so little light, few plants can grow on the ground, so it might actually be easier to walk.
So even if you could photosynthesize, it wouldn't do you any good.
Photosynthesize? People cannot do that.
Most people, anyway.
The end. Reference to the end.
Areas with a distinct dry season, like the Pacific coast, have tropical dry forests. During the dry season, the trees drop their leaves. It gives you a clearer view, but at the same time, there are fewer places to hide. So be careful.
Sounds dull.
It is not really. A lot of trees flower during the dry season, including my favorite, the tabebuia. It has these amazingly vivid yellow flowers. cloud forests cover the central mountainous region of the country. They are perpetually shrouded in fog. You get wet just standing there. It is as if the entire forest is inside a cloud.
Must make for poor visibility.
It does, but beauty too. It is like being lost in some mystical green labyrinth.
I'd rather not get lost, if that's okay.
The forests are also home to lots of rare animals, especially bright-colored frogs. They like the humidity.
Yeah, go ahead and eat. I'm gonna stop eating for a second. So let's just stop for a second. I mean, hold back, right? But my hunger
All I
someone's
have is. Take this, Suchi.
You know that butterfly painted on Peace Walker? Any idea what that is?
It is a morpho, a Palladius morpho, if I'm not mistaken.
Pallades morpho.
Uh-huh. It is the most common type of morpho in Costa Rica.
Huh.
It has these gorgeous metallic blue wings that shimmer in the light. You can see them even from a distance.
You mean they reflect light?
Correct. It is called structural color. Morpho scales have tiny bumps on them that interfere with the light and make them look blue. The space between the bumps corresponds to the wavelength of the blue light.
Let me see if I get this. So if you could change the spacing, you'd end up seeing a different color.
That is the principle. I heard somewhere it is being researched as a way to color cloth without dye.
Think of the camouflage you could make with that.
Is that all you can think of?
Hey, it's important. What I don't get is why they'd put a butterfly on Peace Walker.
Maybe because it looks pretty.
I hope that's all it is.
Costa Rica is said to have about 87,000 species of living things. That is about 5% of all the known species in the world.
A tiny place like this? Huh. I'll be damned.
I want to protect that biological diversity. When diversity is lost, the environment weakens. Just look at the plantations.
I think I know what you mean. It's like trying to assemble a unit from similar guys. It usually doesn't work out. Throw a few square pegs in there and everything falls into place.
There are so many species here that a lot of them have not even been classified yet. I am hoping I can help do that someday. Kind of like a parataxonomist.
Say that again?
Parataxonomist. Someone who helps a taxonomist.
Oh. Huh. I thought you were going to say it had something to do with parachutes.
You're weird. The Development Corporation of Costa Rica, or CODESA, was established 2 years ago. Since President Oduber was elected this year, the state has been putting a lot more effort into development.
The corporate state, so to speak.
Growth is good and all, but there is one thing that bugs me.
What's that?
I cannot help but wonder whether CODESA is not just a front for the CIA.
You mean what the professor was saying about the CIA mercenaries posing as security guards? They were using CODESA as camouflage?
I am worried that development is going to destroy the forests, but I do not suppose it has anything to do with this. The Development Corporation of Costa Rica, or CODESA, was established 2 years ago. Since President Oduber was elected this year, the state has been putting a lot more effort into development.
The corporate state, so to speak.
Growth is good and all, but there is one thing that bugs me.
What's that?
I cannot help but wonder whether CODESA is not just a front for the CIA.
You mean what the professor was saying about the CIA mercenaries posing as security guards? They were using CODESA as camouflage?
I am worried that development is going to destroy the forests, but I do not suppose it has anything to do with this. My mother was the one who named me Paz. She said it was an expression of her wish that the country stay at peace. It is a pretty common name in Central America. My mother always used to tell me, never make war. Always help keep the peace.
I remember. Your grandparents.
Yes. they died in the Civil War. I think that is why my mother hated war so much.
That's another thing you've got in common with Kaz. His mother named him Peace, too.
See, because Japan also suffered through war. I think I know how Mr. Miller's mother felt.
You like the peace sign, huh?
See, as a gesture, it connects every peace-loving person. Here, you try it, Snake. Peace.
No thanks. It doesn't suit me.
Too bad for you.
You know, the V in the peace sign comes from the V in victory. When did it start standing for peace?
I am not completely sure, but I guess it came out of the protest movement against the Vietnam War. Oh, and do not turn your hand around when you do it, especially around British people. It is insulting.
So, you live alone now?
No, not alone. I've been living in school dormitories since I started junior high. After my mother died, my relatives took me in, but they were not my real family.
You didn't fit in there.
In a way. My aunts were kind to me and all. But I know how difficult it must have been to suddenly have a child thrust into their lives. When you live with someone, there are no secrets. I could tell my being there was a burden on them.
Sounds like a rough childhood.
I would not say that. I was lucky just to have people take me in. There are huérfanos living out in the streets because their mothers died. It is even worse in countries with frequent civil wars. So, who am I to complain about my childhood?
You're a pretty tough kid, you know?
Not at all. I am not strong at all. I have a favor to ask you, Snake.
Name it.
I want you to give me a job here. I want to help out.
You sure? You just went through a hell of a time. You should probably take it easy until you're settled.
Thank you. But there must be something I can do. You would not want me near a gun. But I am a decent cook.
Now, there's a skill we can use.
Put me on the mess hall team. I think I can handle it. Once I get used to it, I will even add in some Costa Rican recipes.
Sounds like a plan.
Playa del Alba means Beach of Dawn. The morning sun is so beautiful over the Caribbean.
Beach of Dawn, huh? Perfect place to start a mission.
The clear blue water, the white sand, the swaying palm trees. You cannot get more South American than here. It is paradise on earth.
Yeah, guess I should have packed my Hawaiian shirt.
The coral reefs and mangrove forests protect the small fish in the area. Sea turtles come to lay their eggs on these beaches. We are not the only ones who enjoy this place. It is heaven for more than just humans. Bosque del Alba means Forest of Dawn. Naturally, it is situated on the east coast. It is your standard tropical rainforest. Everything you would imagine in a jungle.
No sign of morning sun here.
The foliage is too thick for direct sunlight to hit the floor. I do not know how easy it will be making your way through here.
I'll be fine. This isn't my first trip to a jungle.
The mercenary supply base is situated on elevated ground by the coast. I heard them call it Puerto del Alba, Port of Dawn. They have perfect visibility of the area from up there. We did our best to sneak in undetected, but one of the guards spotted us and we...
What is it?
I'm sorry. You'll have to ask Professor Galvez the rest.
It's okay. You've been through a lot.
I am sorry. I just cannot.
You did great, Paz. I won't let your efforts go wasted.
The mercenary supply base is situated on elevated ground by the coast. I heard them call it Puerto del Alba, Port of Dawn. They have perfect visibility of the area from up there. We did our best to sneak in undetected, but one of the guards spotted us and we...
What is it?
I'm sorry. You'll have to ask Professor Galvez the rest.
It's okay. You've been through a lot.
I am sorry. I just cannot.
You did great, Paz. I won't let your efforts go wasted.
Awkward moment when there's a donation.
This is a tropical rainforest, just like Bosque del Alba. The temperature and humidity can be brutal. El Senegal means place of mud.
No, mud. Great. I'll watch my step.
This area often gets flooded by the river. There are canals here and there carved out by water.
Good places to hide.
But they will also make it harder for you to see. Be careful, Snake. There should be a suspension bridge around there.
In lowlands like this?
The ground nearby is harder and higher than usual. The river cut through it, eventually creating a valley. There might be another way to get across the river somewhere.
I wouldn't want to run into someone on the bridge.
The valley tends to be misty, so you might not be able to see the water from up there. Fall and it will leave more than a bump.
I'll be careful.
When a river floods an area, the banks can collapse, creating a marsh. You see a lot of them around here.
I'll need to watch the noise my feet make in El Senegal.
There is a marsh on the other side of the river, too. The suspension bridge will take you there. The river running through here is Rio del Jade, or the Jade River.
Jade? Are there minerals around here?
No, it refers to the color of the water. You will have to go to Guatemala for jade.
Doesn't look all that pretty from where I'm standing.
We are still in the rainy season, so the river is a little muddy. It will return to normal once the dry season starts. Rivers are an important means of transport around here. They are relatively calm, and there are plenty of canals along the coast too.
A boat would be more than enough to transport some good-sized cargo.
Like a nuclear weapon.
We don't know enough yet. I'll keep looking.
Thank you, Snake. There is a lot of banana cultivation along Costa Rica's Caribbean coast. The area is dotted with banana plantations. Bananas have been Costa Rica's main crop since they were introduced from Panama in the 19th century. They bring in a fair amount of foreign currency.
A real fruta de oro, huh?
See, but exporting all those bananas require a ton of land.
Hence all the plantations.
Clearing all that forest just to grow bananas robs animals of their habitats. I do not know how good that is for Costa Rica in the end. Panama disease was rampant here about 20 years ago, putting a lot of banana plantations out of business.
Panama disease?
It is caused by a type of fungus. Apparently, it killed off almost all the banana species that used to grow here.
How could that happen?
Cultivated bananas do not produce seeds. You have to remove and transplant part of the stem yourself. You plant them in the fields.
So you've got acres of identical plants?
See, when one plant is infected, the disease spreads quickly. Species lacking genetic diversity become weak. They grow different bananas today, one said to be resistant to Panama disease. Costa Rica has several active volcanoes, Irasu being one of them.
That's where Camino de Lava comes from, huh?
The tropical dry forests around here are quite different from our rainforests. They lose their leaves in the dry season. Tropical forests are not all thick jungles. A few of them even have cacti. Some of Costa Rica's greatest assets are its diverse forests and natural landscapes. Costa Rica got its first real railroads up and running about 100 years ago. Their primary purpose was to move coffee harvested in the Central Basin to the Caribbean coast.
They built railroads here 100 years ago? That's impressive.
It was even more difficult than you would imagine. Later, they started using the railroads for shipping bananas too. There still might be some branch lines around here. Aldea de los Despiertos means Village of the Awake.
Weird name.
The area is littered with coffee fields, and there is a factory nearby. The villagers are fans of coffee, so...
They don't get much sleep, huh? They've got a sense of humor, all right.
I cannot believe they would take over a place like this and use it as a prison. It is unforgivable for both the CIA and the thugs they employ. All the villagers wanted was to live in peace. What gives the CIA the right to crush them like that?
They don't care about anyone's rights but their own. It's just the way some people are.
You really think so?
Don't worry. It just gives me the right to teach them a lesson.
The CIA has taken control of this coffee factory too, all to produce its drugs. It was famous once for its fine beans.
Cafetal Aroma Encantado. Enchanting aroma, huh?
See, once we have thrown the mercenaries out of Costa Rica, I know it will make wonderful coffee again. And then you must come and try some, Snake.
Sounds great. I wouldn't mind a cup of joe after all this is over. Oh, wait.
What is wrong?
No, I just remembered this guy I knew wasn't big on coffee. English. Get rid of that muddy water and get a cup of black tea down your gob, he'd say.
That is too bad for him. It is delicious. As I said before, building railroads in Costa Rica was a dangerous job. A lot of men died, and sometimes they stopped work altogether. This is one of those places. They had to cut through steep terrain, so when they finally made it through, they just built the rail terminal right there. And that is why they named it...
El Cadalso. The gallows. Charming. I'm surprised the construction money didn't dry up the way things were going.
Actually, it did, but the bananas helped complete it. So they say.
You mean the energy the workers got from eating bananas? Well, I suppose they do have plenty of vitamins.
No. I meant the money they got to finish it came from exporting bananas.
Oh.
But one thing is for certain. The owners of the railroads expanded into the banana trade after construction was completed. That was the start of banana cultivation in Costa Rica.
There were two guys, one that you shot, and yo, you please.
Snake, to the north of the village is a bridge that crosses a hydraulic pipe. Though normally the bridge is not used by people, if you slip, you will fall straight to the bottom of the valley.
What's the channel doing here?
It is not for irrigation. They are hydroelectric pipes. I wonder if they run into Irasu's Crater Lake. Normally they would build a reservoir at the bottom of the valley, but it was probably too dangerous. Los Cantos means Sword Peak. You should be able to see across the Irasu mountain range from there. There are not as many big trees at that elevation, and you will probably be well above the mist.
It'll be tough to hide up there.
You're not thinking about the scenery right now, are you?
Not while I'm surrounded by bad guys.
You should have seen it when the country was at peace. I know you would have been impressed.
Well, that'll be our reward for a successful mission. Sound good?
Wonderful. Thank you, Snake.
I might go check out that body. Hold on. Let me see. This guy had backpack.
There is an old fort around there.
What is it, boss? You sound upset.
Well, you see, it was built during the Civil War.
Let me guess. Disputes between Costa Rica's political parties escalated into all-out conflict.
See, conflict that cost my grandparents their lives. The most senseless sort of war. Countrymen mindlessly slaughtering their own. That fort is a reminder of that senselessness.
Sadly ironic, given who's occupying it now.
That war was the reason Costa Rica abolished the army. Please, Snake, get them out of our country.
I intend to.
You should be able to see across the Irasu mountain range from there. There are not as many big trees at that elevation, and you will probably be well above the mist.
It'll be tough to hide up there.
You're not thinking about the scenery right now, are you?
Not while I'm surrounded by bad guys.
You should have seen it when the country was at peace. I know you would have been impressed.
Well, that'll be our reward for a successful mission. Sound good?
Wonderful. Thank you, Snake.
Pass. What was the government thinking building a power plant at the top of a mountain? With no river to replenish the water, the lake would dry up pretty quick.
If it were an ordinary power plant. But the plan called for a pumped storage power plant.
Pumped storage power plant? Kaz mentioned that too. What is that?
It is a facility that generates electricity by pumping water up to the lake, then letting it run back down.
Seems Sisyphean to me.
If they turned the water into electricity as soon as they had pumped it up, sure. But a pumped storage plant acts as a kind of battery.
A battery?
For instance, they could pump at night when there is surplus electricity and store it for later use. If they need extra power during the day, they can generate it using water pumped up during the night.
I get it. It's a little more difficult to adjust output with thermal or nuclear plants.
The thing is, Costa Rica won't have enough electricity to meet its needs. Right now, there is no surplus.
Maybe that's what put the brakes on the project. Must have played right into the CIA's hands.
This area is a tropical cloud forest, continually covered in a thick mist. It is quite a mystical place.
Selva de la Leche. Forest of milk. I can barely see in front of me.
There you go again. The forest is basically sitting in a cloud, so of course it's going to be hard to see. But you know, the cloud forest is the only place many exotic creatures can live.
Well, if they're not edible, I'm not interested.
Snake, I'll have you know people travel from all around the world to witness Costa Rica's unique fauna. Snake, watch out for the frogs.
Why? They bite? Relax. No frog's ever eaten a snake. Although, I've feasted on a few frogs' legs myself.
But they are dangerous. They are poisonous.
Poisonous?
Poison dart frogs live up to their name, I assure you. Their poison is so strong, the Indígena use them to make poison-tipped arrows. Some secrete poison through their skin. Even touching them can be dangerous. So don't go petting them or anything.
So, I can't eat one.
I am warning you. Catarata de la Muerte means Waterfall of Death.
Huh. How cheerful.
I am sure it will be no problem for you, Snake. Especially compared to all the dire situations you've faced in the past.
Yeah, easy to say now. We'll see what really happens.
Sorry. Still, you have surprised me. Everything they say about the legend is true.
I'm neither hero nor legend. But for some reason, I don't mind you calling me that.
Thanks. Be careful, Snake. Peace.
Selva de la Muerte, huh? Forest of Death. Wouldn't want to get lost here.
Sure wouldn't. But do not worry. I will be your guide.
Happy to hear it.
By the way, Snake, you know much about sloths?
Just the name.
They are amazing. Sloths spend almost all of their lives up in the trees, except for when they have to go to the bathroom. Plus, they barely eat a thing.
What? How do they survive?
Why do you think they are called sloths? They hardly move, so they hardly burn any energy. They are also able to maintain a low body temperature, lowering their metabolism further and allowing them to survive on very little.
Wouldn't that make it easier for them to get picked off by predators?
They stick to the trees, helping them blend in and stay out of sight. They say there are even some sloths that grow moss when they reach a certain age, like some sort of fairy tale forest hermit, huh?
I knew a great old sniper once. Guess he was even more in tune with nature than I thought.
Old sniper? What are you talking about?
The end.
La Ruinas de Xochiquetzal will be around there. They have not been restored at all, so they may well be covered in plants.
Xochiquetzal?
An Aztec goddess of fertility and beauty. They say she was always accompanied by birds and butterflies. One theory states she was the mother of the god known as Quetzalcoatl.
Quetzalcoatl.
The Quetzal is said to be an incarnation of Quetzalcoatl, hence its name.
I get it. Well, this place definitely matches the atmosphere of a cloud forest.
Now, it may have seen better days, but that is still a temple, so be sure to show respect when you're inside.
If the mood strikes me.
Well, you've got no one to blame but yourself if Xochiquetzal strikes you down. I do not know if I recall such large ruins being there.
Well, didn't you say there's a lot we don't know about Costa Rica's ancient civilizations? You talked about some giant stone balls, too. What are those?
Oh, the stone spheres of Costa Rica? They are an assortment of giant spheres carved from stone that were discovered in the jungles of Costa Rica about 50 years ago.
What's so special about that?
What if I told you some of them are nearly perfect spheres, and that they were carved out of granite, which is quite a hard substance?
Could be good for laying a trap. And if they're spherical, they roll easily, too.
Snake!
So tell me, what do they mine around here?
Gold, if I am not mistaken.
Gold? No kidding. I wonder what would be the fastest way to...
I do not know how much success they have had. You do not hear of anyone still operating mines around here.
Oh.
Generally speaking, people here are not too thrilled with outside capital coming in and taking away the country's natural resources. 4 years ago, a group of protesters hurled stones at the Parliament building when people found out the country had been bestowing mining rights to foreign companies. They must have had to clear a considerable amount of forest to open up that mine.
No doubt. So much for any hiding places, too.
And it is not just the forest. Without the proper precautions, the mine's wastewater could pollute the groundwater. And to top it all off, they're developing nuclear weapons there too. How can people care so little about their own country?
I'm not the one to ask about that.
Well, you may have abandoned your country, but you still treasure where you came from.
You think so?
Sure. I know you do.
Paz, whatever you do, never stop loving your country.
Enough character development on it. Lucy O'Brien can suck it.
Since it was founded, my country has not once been able to choose its own path. First Spain, then America. Over 100 years of this.
I know.
In the 19th century, an American mercenary named William Walker seized power in Nicaragua.
I'd heard he exploited rivalries between the political parties.
Even after we expelled him, the Americans sent in their Marines under the pretext of quelling political unrest.
And the real reason?
To intimidate the government and thwart the construction of the Nicaragua Canal.
I thought the U.S. already has the rights to build a canal in Nicaragua.
They never intended to build a canal there. They'd already started digging in Panama. A canal in Nicaragua would break up the Panama Canal's monopoly. Reason enough for America to stick its nose into our affairs.
They snagged the rights so nobody else could build there.
It was General Sandino who finally stood up to los Yankees. General Sandino waged a guerrilla war against the Marines, at last driving them out. He was a true hero, and to us Sandinistas, like a father. But when they pulled out, the Americans left us something to remember them by.
The National Guard.
Yes, La Guardia. In name, a peacekeeping force, but in reality, Commander Somoza's personal army, answering to no one else. Unable to stay silent, General Sandino went to protest and was assassinated by Somoza as he made his way home. It was then that Somoza and Los Sapos began to eat our country alive from the inside.
Wasn't paying attention.
General Sandino waged a guerrilla war against the Marines, at last driving them out. He was a true hero, and to us Sandinistas, like a father. But when they pulled out, the Americans left us something to remember them by.
The National Guard.
Yes, La Guardia. In name, a peacekeeping force, but in reality, Commander Somoza's personal army, answering to no one else. Unable to stay silent, General Sandino went to protest and was assassinated by Somoza as he made his way home. It was then that Somoza and Los Sapos began to eat our country alive from the inside. It has been 40 years since the Somoza family became the rulers of Nicaragua. With La Guardia at their command, no one can challenge them.
You came here on the run from the National Guard, right?
See, they took everything. Our land, our homes, our jobs.
Now belong to Somoza.
See, the law too. He's even got the judges in his pocket. You defy him, you face death. Everyone bows and scrapes before La Guardia. Even then you might get a beating if they are in a bad mood.
And you're trying to change things.
That's not all. These Somozas have used their power to line their pockets. They confiscate people's land and hand it to members of the Somoza family. By now, close to half the farmland in Nicaragua is theirs. We were powerless until... You remember the earthquake 2 years ago?
Yeah, I heard the capital was hit pretty hard.
We lost Managua, our capital city. People sent aid from all around the world. Tears of sorrow turned to tears of joy. Yet almost all of it was embezzled by the Somozas. They sold out those who'd lost everything for money. They feasted on our country's suffering. Public resentment is at the boiling point.
The Somosa's days are numbered. We will see to it. The first Somoza was originally no more than the commander of La Guardia. Ordinarily, a man of his station could never hope to become president. But the president at the time had no power to back him. The only one with the strength to oppose him was General Sandino. No, better to say the general was the only one who dared oppose him. There was nothing special about him. Above all, it takes a strong will to see justice done. That is what he taught us.
It's also what motivated Somoza to have him killed.
Yes, the rest was easy. He got rid of the president, taking office in a sham election. And once he had the power, he never gave it up.
Talk about heavy-handed.
He had the Americans backing him, that's why. They didn't want to hand over power to a rebellious general.
Even so, it's hard to believe Washington would give its blessing to a guy like that.
The American president at the time put it this way. Somoza may be a son of a bitch, but he's our son of a bitch. In other words, better a dog or Los Sapos than an anti-US regime. The Managua earthquake struck 2 years ago, the day before Christmas Eve. Giant cracks opened up in the streets. Sleeping children were crushed in collapsing houses. No chance to escape. No visit from Santa Claus. Thanks to Somoza, the old houses could not even get rebuilt. It was a nightmare.
I heard the epicenter was right in the middle of the city.
Even today, it's too dangerous to build on top of the fault line. The city center is still in ruins.
And to make things worse, Somoza stole the recovery money.
We must not fail. We owe it to those who lost their lives. We will defeat Somoza. The river that flows between Nicaragua and Costa Rica is el Rio San Juan. It connects Lago Cocibolca to el Mar Caribe. It is a gentle river, safe even for small boats. You have to watch out for the sharks, though.
Sharks? In a river?
El Tiburón Toro live in the river, but there's nothing to fear. San Juan will protect you always.
Juan?
The Rio San Juan takes its name from San Juan, the man who baptized Jesus, the man you call John the Baptist in your country.
John, huh? I'll be careful anyway. I'd hate to drown. End up a John Doe.
There is a volcanic island in Ica called Ometepe. It's formed from two connected volcanoes shaped like a porongo.
The one with smoke coming out of it.
That's the one. The smoking volcano is Concepcion. It erupts once in a while. The other one is Maderas. It's never erupted in recorded history. There's a lake in the caldera at the top.
A crater lake. Let's hope there's not another underground factory inside.
Don't say that. If Peace Walker's nukes detonated there, it would destabilize the magma underneath. they could cause the volcano to erupt again. If that happens, my country is doomed. Snake, you must stop Peace Walker. We are Sandinistas, the heirs of General Sandino's will.
Sandino, the father of modern guerrilla warfare.
To you, maybe. To us, he's more like a real father.
That why you named yourselves after him?
Of course. La Frente Sandinista de Liberación Nacional. The Sandinista National Liberation Front is named in his honor. We share the general's goal, to take back our country's freedom. In his day, from America. In ours, from the despot Somoza.
Times have changed, but the song remains the same.
Patria libre o morir. That is our slogan. El Che used to say the same thing, you know.
Patria o muerte, the slogan of the Cuban Revolution. So, you're fighting for a socialist revolution too, then?
No, it's not about ideology. We only want to live normal lives. We are sick of living in a country where you can be beaten for walking down the street, where you never know if your neighbor is snitching on you. Our goal is to give back the country to its people.
Yeah, the Cuban Revolution started out like that too.
We are few in number, but we will win. Victoria o muerte. For a revolutionary, there is no other fate. Augusto Cesar Sandino, general and hero of Nicaragua. 50 years ago, conflict broke out between the political parties of Nicaragua. The U.S. Marines intervened in the name of restoring order. The only one who refused to listen to their call for reconciliation was General Sandino.
Huh. One man against the Marines. That takes guts.
The general wasn't a professional soldier. Neither were his compadres. And they certainly could not match the Marines' equipment. But he used the land to his advantage, lurking in the fields and hills of Nicaragua, and using surprise attacks to harass the Marines.
I know. I've read plenty of textbooks on guerrilla warfare.
In the end, he drove them out. He was truly a role model for us.
Yeah, but that was the 30s. Didn't the Depression have something to do with it? It takes cash to wage war.
Perhaps. But there is no denying what the general accomplished. The people hailed him as the General de Hombres Libres, the general of free men. They loved him. And then he was assassinated by Anastasio Somoza Garcia, commander of La Guardia.
The father of the current Somoza.
Somoza had the Americans' backing. That is the way things were. The general may be dead, and the times may have changed, but his will lives on inside each of us. We are the sons and daughters of General Sandino.
Hey, how's the watermelon business these days?
Not bad. I hear the compas back home are hanging in there too.
Good to hear.
You know our nickname. I'm impressed. No wonder they call you boss.
You used to hide your weapons in hollowed-out watermelons, smuggle them right past the National Guard. You even transported pineapple grenades that way. The name caught on among sympathizers in the region and...
What are you talking about? They call us watermelon sellers because the general's name sounds like the word for watermelon. Sandia.
Really?
Si.
Damn it, Kaz.
Kaz played Snake like a damn fiddle on that one. Kappa. One sec. Stretching. Yeah, I'm just going through the tapes, getting some backstory. Because I'm interested in it. It's interesting stuff. Some nice touches on what's going on during this time in 1974.
revolution to bring peace to your country, huh? No matter how much we fight, peace never gets any closer, does it?
I do not like it, but it is the only way. If we do not fight back, they'll just keep exploiting us. You want proof? Look at our country's history. Revolution is a means and not an end. I know. When the revolution is victorious, I want my country to be at peace. But to bring peace, we have to first eliminate that traitorous scum.
It's an old saying. We make war that we may live in peace.
Who said it?
Aristotle.
You know your history.
I had a good teacher.
It has always been like this. People making the same mistakes over and over. And still, all we can do is fight.
I hear you. If you've got a goal, you've got to keep moving forward. I noticed you called Che Guevara El Che.
Not just us. Everyone in these parts does. Che was always his nickname. It does not feel right to call him by his last name. I was shocked the first time I saw you. You look so much like him.
I look like El Che, huh?
Sort of. Not in the face. It's more the way you carry yourself.
I guess Che's a hero to the Sandinistas, too.
Of course. The FSLN was formed in the spirit of the ideologies championed by El Che and Fidel.
Fidel Castro. So, you're trying to bring the Cuban Revolution to Nicaragua.
Well, we were. But Cuba isn't what it once was. Not since El Che left. El Che was a true revolutionary. He fought and died for the people. He worked harder than anybody, and he was a righteous man. Even as a minister of Cuba, he gave up his weekends to work on the farms and public works. As a volunteer, no less.
Yeah, I've heard the stories. But when you think about it, wasn't it that obsession that did him in?
How do you mean?
We can't all be supermen. He thought the ideals he applied in Cuba would work in Bolivia. But he failed to win converts and the support of the peasants. And it cost him his life.
Maybe you are right. But at least he did not steal from those peasants, no matter how hard things got.
Yeah, I can sympathize with that. There's plenty of guerrillas out there who'd rob their own people to feed their revolutions.
If we had a comandante like him, the Sandinistas would find the will to fight.
You called that giant chopper an hombre nuevo.
Si. It means new man.
New man?
There was nobody piloting that thing. It must be controlled by machine.
Yeah, it seems that way. No human being could pull off those crazy maneuvers.
But it's not crazy. It's smart. It sings, too.
When we first saw it, one of your men said, pilot must be an hombre nuevo.
Me? I do not like the name.
Why?
Hombre nuevo was what El Che was striving to become. What all of us who joined the Sandinistas strive to become. That's why. An hombre nuevo is one who finds joy in virtue and voluntary labor. It makes me furious to see that name given to such a monster.
I'll bet. Chico called that helicopter El Colibri.
Our name for the hummingbird. You saw how that chopper moved, how it hovered in midair like a hummingbird?
A hell of a lot bigger than a bird, though.
True, but better than hombre nuevo, don't you think? When you get kidnapped by El Colibri, it's all over. They take you to a prison camp and torture you until you snitch on your compas.
That's what took Chico.
They have no mercy. Once you talk, they toss you out like trash. I knew this, and still I could not save Chico. If he cannot be saved, I will do what must be done.
Don't write him off like that. Sometimes you have to survive, even if it means sacrificing your honor. I'll get him back. I promise.
Snake, I need your opinion. How strong are the enemy's mercenaries?
They're well trained. They've got more than enough men. Seasoned, too. A lot of them probably saw action in Vietnam. They're a tough bunch. And armed to the teeth. I don't think I've ever seen a mercenary force field that many tanks and attack choppers.
It shows how much cash they have to throw around. And connections. How did they get access to such weapons?
How do you think? They're backed by the one and only CIA.
And here we are. Half of us farmers, and the other half students. Children, even. And weapons. We're so short on guns, we have to steal them from the enemy. As much as I hate to say it, we're always going to be on the defensive.
I know.
And mi viejo. Without him, we...
Yeah, I know.
I don't know if we can win. Can we, Snake?
Stop feeling sorry for yourself.
But...
Amanda.
What?
Listen to me. Don't ever let your men hear you talk like that. You're their leader, and a leader has to stand tall, even when times get tough, when it feels like the fear and uncertainty could crush you. You're the one your comrades look to for reassurance. That's what a leader is. Don't forget it.
Snake.
If you're looking for comfort, go find a church. That's all I've got to say.
You are right. I am sorry. I need to pull myself together.
You'll be fine. I know you have it in you.
Thank you, Snake. The land in our country belongs to us, and yet it does not belong to us.
How so?
Along the coast, it is all banana groves, and in the mountains, it is coffee. I guess in that way, it is not so different from here.
Plantations.
Almost all the bananas and coffee are sold as exports. The landlords keep the money for themselves, leaving precious little to the farmers. Worse, the biggest landowners in the country are Somoza and his family.
But it does bring in foreign currency.
I doubt even that, at least for bananas. The plantations are owned by American corporations. The bananas are processed in factories on the plantations and exported to America from private ports. It's like having little American enclaves along the coast of Nicaragua.
But the farmers have no choice but to go work there.
Es ridículo. The people have to take their land back. It is one of the things we are fighting for.
Tell me, when exactly did you realize your dad was working with the KGB?
About 6 months ago. Up until then, we only had beans to eat. And then suddenly we started to get eggs and flour. Our bullet shortage simply disappeared.
How'd he get the cocaine?
Ask the KGB. All we did here was process it. Coca plants grow here too. But to my knowledge, almost all of the stuff we used came from Colombia and Bolivia.
It's processed in a factory and then shipped to ports on the Caribbean Sea. Where does it go after that?
I never thought about it. I mean, I did not want to think about it.
The biggest cocaine consumer in the world is the United States. I'm guessing they smuggle it in on vessels disguised as fishing boats.
Wait. La CIA uses that route too. Are you telling me they're selling cocaine to their own country?
Looks that way.
Those bastards are turning their own children into junkies? Are they insane?
No. Just afraid. Afraid of a communist Central America.
La CIA calls their new toy Peace Walker, eh?
Yeah. So?
It is an insult to us Nicos.
Because of the guy you were talking about. Walker?
Si. Although it happened over 100 years ago. Back then, the political parties in Nicaragua were at each other's throats. The Nicaraguan Democratic Party hired an American mercenary to help counter their enemies, the Conservative Party.
And that was Walker.
After taking care of the conservatives, Walker decided to seize power in Nicaragua for himself, eventually making himself president.
The Democratic Party gave him an inch, and he took the whole country.
But it did not end there. Not only did he make English an official language, he tried to reintroduce slavery. Walker's goal was to build a Caribbean empire, centered on the American South.
Caribbean empire? Sounds kind of like what Coldman is trying to pull off.
The gringos are always like that. They invent some convenient excuse to trample all over foreign countries like they own the place. Peace Walker, ha!
What happened to Walker, in the end?
A united Central American army led by Costa Rica kicked his ass and sent him running back to America.
Then why don't we do the same? I, for one, don't intend to let Coldman get his way.
Good idea. I'm glad we have you, boss.
Amanda, when did you join up with the Sandinistas?
About a year ago, when I went into the mountains with mi viejo and his group.
I thought your dad was with the FSLN from the start.
No, he fought alongside General Sandino, but after that, he retired for a while. He found a job, got a wife and a house, and raised us kids. Then one day, some Sandinista students came by.
And he felt the old fire in his belly.
Something like that. All he did was help them escape from La Guardia, though. But then La Guardia showed up. They broke into our house and began pushing him around, shouting questions.
I'm guessing he kept his mouth shut.
No matter how hard they hit him. Our house was trashed. After that, he was on their list. They harassed him day and night. It was only then that he gave himself over to the Sandinistas. He kept it hidden from us at first, so we would not get hurt.
He sounds like a good father.
He was. But my mother got fed up with it. She left us. I don't blame her.
Why didn't you go with her?
It was a hard decision for sure. But like my father, I could not let Somoza get away with his crimes. But most of all,
Chico.
He is too much like his papa. One way or the other, he was going to stay. And I could not leave him behind. Soon enough, La Guardia drove us out, and we found ourselves in the mountains. It just kind of happened.
Well, for an accidental revolutionary, you sure put up a hell of a fight.
The mountains make men into warriors. The training is harsh, but it brings us that much closer to being hombres nuevos.
Chico couldn't ask for a better sister. I can see why they picked you to be Comandante.
When I was little, I came down with malaria. Unlucky for me, it was the bad kind. I was in a daze the whole time. And at one point they said I was not going to make it.
Malarial encephalopathy. I hear it's pretty common in tropical malaria cases.
Even today, my memory sometimes gets a little fuzzy. Since then, I've had this fear of mosquitoes. When I hear them buzzing nearby, I get jumpy.
Aha, that explains the chain smoking.
See, I thought it might help keep the mosquitoes away, just a little. Maybe it is all in my head. You're the same way, right?
Well, I will say this. I prefer a cigar over mosquitoes.
Me too.
I've got to hand it to you. It takes guts to conquer your fear like that and live a guerrilla's life in the wild.
It is nothing. El Che did not let asthma stop him from leading the revolution. Compared to him, I am no hero.
I'm sorry to hear about your dad.
Thank you for saying that. Mi viejo was the leader of the Frente. He was the last of the generation that knew General Sandino. He saw the general's exploits firsthand as a boy. He would tell us stories about it all the time and about how the general was assassinated.
Did you know he was getting money from the KGB?
I had some idea, but I did not have the courage to confront him about it. I know it was a painful decision for him to make.
I can imagine.
Yes, my father was a good man. I loved him as a daughter, and his soldiers believed in him. Thanks to him, La Frente held together even in the worst of times. I don't know if I can ever fill his shoes.
Chico's 12, right?
Right.
Isn't he a little short for his age?
Malnourishment. Food is hard to come by when you're running around in the jungle.
He's got quite an appetite.
I know. I didn't want him to come in the first place, but there was no one to take him in. I had no choice but to look after him.
Don't be so hard on yourself. Sometimes it's better for a kid to be with his family than far away in a safe place.
Thank you.
Promise me this, though. When your fight is over, make sure he gets a proper education. Give him a chance to be something other than a guerrilla. It's not too late to teach him something other than fighting.
Okay, I promise. You know what book Chico really likes? The World Encyclopedia of Mysterious Creatures. The Loch Ness Monster, the Yeti.
UMAs. Yeah, I know.
He's still so much like a boy. I worry about him.
He'll be fine. I know plenty of grown men who still go crazy over UMAs.
Are you serious? You have taken such good care of me since you saved me from El Colibri. I want to return the favor.
Just wait until you're healed up. Then we'll talk.
I appreciate that, but you need all the help you can get. It might take a while for me to heal completely, but I'll be fine once I'm on my feet. Put me in a combat unit. I'll pull my weight.
I wouldn't expect any less from a Sandinista Comandante.
Enough flattery. But seriously, it does not feel right for me to be sitting here while my compas are out risking their lives.
One thing's for sure. Having you out in the field would be a big boost to Sandinista morale.
Of course, our ultimate goal is still the overthrow of Somoza. But until we get ourselves back in order, we will follow your lead, wherever it takes us.
Glad to have you on board. Amanda, you getting used to Mother Base?
Yes, it is heaven compared to living in the mountains. We are no longer constantly on the run from La Guardia or mercenaries.
Some of the new guys we recruited used to be mercenaries.
We are getting along. It was difficult at first, but once you talk to them, you realize we've got plenty in common.
I see. Good to hear.
We may be enemies, but we are all still human beings. La CIA's soldiers, La Guardia. The same goes for the people of America.
What's gotten into you?
Mi viejo got involved with drugs in order to scrape together money for La Revolucion. He did whatever the KGB said, all for Nicaragua, or so he told himself. But I realize now, in the end, all he did was help poison young people of America.
Yeah.
I have made up my mind. Even when I leave Mother Base and return to La Revolucion, I will never turn to drugs. Nor will I look to the KGB for help. If we topple Somoza using the KGB and drug money, we will lose the people's hearts.
So, you're choosing a different path from your father.
I still respect him, but I will not do things the way he did.
Well, I'm sure Chico will be glad to hear that.
Chico is a grown soldier now. I could not face him otherwise.
Well said, Amanda. Those are the words of a true Comandante.
Stop. I was inspired by the greatest Comandante I have ever known. Boss.
Hey, what's with all this sighing? You're not your usual self.
Oh, Snake.
Something on your mind?
Huh? No, not really. I guess. Hey, Snake. Girls are funny, you know? You can never tell what they're thinking. They're always doing their own thing. Maybe they really are different from us men.
Whoa, what's this about now? Chico, do you have a crush on somebody?
No, it's not that. I just...
What? Go ahead, you can talk to me.
Whenever I talk to Paz, my heart starts pounding and everything I say comes out wrong.
Paz? I guess she is pretty close to your age.
That ever happened to you, Snake?
Well, sure. Happens to everybody.
Well, how do I talk to her?
That is a tough one. Why don't you try, talking to her like you talk to everybody else?
No, it doesn't work. I freeze up every time I'm around her. Our eyes meet and my face starts burning for some reason.
It's like living on the battlefield. You just have to get used to it. You're nervous at first, but the more you're out there, the more natural it feels. Get your courage up and go talk to her more often.
Oh, okay. Man, girls are more full of mysteries than UMAs.
Oh, you got that right. Chico, I heard you saw Paz trying to sabotage Zeke before she activated.
I should have stopped her. If only I hadn't run away. I could have captured her before she got inside. If I'd done that, she'd still be here.
She was carrying a gun. Probably trained to use it too. Don't blame yourself. You couldn't have stopped her anyway. You were unarmed.
Could have at least talked to her. If I'd promised not to tell anyone, Paz wouldn't have gone and done what she did. It's just I was so shocked. I panicked. Ran away.
Chico, when you saw Paz, she was trying to sabotage it, right?
Huh? Well, yeah.
And right after that, she took control of it, tried to make me surrender. Something doesn't add up. Why would she sabotage Zeke when she was about to use it against me?
What?
Her actions were inconsistent. Even for a spy. If she wanted to destroy Zeke, she could have done it and run away. But if her goal was to steal Zeke, she'd have no motive to sabotage it.
I don't know.
Maybe your seeing her caused her to change her plan. I don't get it.
I already went through Chico's tapes, so I'm gonna go straight to Huey. All the new tape sets you saw with Chico are the Monster Hunter stuff, which is I guess you could say unnecessary to hear, but if you guys want to hear it, then just let me know, and after Huey I can go back to it.
Doc, I'm starting to sense your feelings about nukes are a little different from your colleagues.
How do you mean?
Your little chat with Coldman back there.
I told you my father worked on the Manhattan Project, right? You're familiar with it?
The basics, yeah. It was the project that kicked off the nuclear age.
That's right. Some of the finest minds of the 20th century, including multiple Nobel Prize winners, worked on it. They spent over $2 billion, and that's in 1940s money. It culminated in the successful nuclear test at Alamogordo on July 16th, 1945.
And the first use in combat a few weeks later. Doc?
I can't walk.
What?
My spine isn't shaped like everybody else's. I can't move my lower body, so I've never taken a single step, not since I was born.
What's that got to do with your dad being in the Manhattan Project?
As a result of his research, my father was exposed to high doses of radiation. It can't be a coincidence that my chromosomes are messed up. That's why I didn't want for these nukes to be another sword of Damocles. I wanted to give them a real purpose, to be a deterrent against war.
Doc.
And Coldman, we have to stop him, whatever it takes. August 6th, 1945, Hiroshima. August 9, Nagasaki.
The atom bomb attacks on Japan.
My father was married to his work. I don't have a single memory of going places or doing stuff with him on weekends. But even as a kid, I knew on some level that it was for his family. I respected him. My mother used to tell me all the time, "Your father is a brilliant scientist. He saved countless American boys from death. You should be proud of him."
Yeah. You could say the war ended because of those bombs.
When I was in the 5th grade, a Japanese student transferred to our class. She showed me photos of Hiroshima after the bomb. I couldn't believe my eyes. A city of over 350,000 people reduced to a scorch mark on the ground by a single atomic bomb. Houses blown off their foundations, burned to ashes. The only things left standing were the skeletons of steel-framed buildings. And it wasn't just the buildings. Blackened corpses on the side of the road. Survivors covered head to toe in severe burns. Within a few months, over 70,000 had died in Nagasaki, twice that in Hiroshima. For years after that, I couldn't talk to my father. Couldn't even stand to look at his face.
I know how you feel, Doc. But your father's your father.
If he hadn't worked on that project, my body wouldn't be like this. I could be researching something else. I could have lived a normal life. It wasn't so long ago the world stood on the brink of nuclear war.
Just over on the other side of the Caribbean.
I was 17 at the time. I'd skipped a few grades and was a sophomore at MIT. I remember feeling kind of apathetic about the news that came in every day. It seemed clear to me that as long as they had a grasp of the concept of nuclear deterrence, there was nothing to fear.
Either that, or they were fanning that fear on purpose.
As a way to secure a bigger defense budget? Huh, I can see that. But if that was their plan, it kind of backfired.
Because it ushered in the era of détente between East and West.
Coldman's really gonna do it this time. Once the nuclear genie is out of the bottle, the yoke of deterrence is going to be meaningless. People will die. Cities will burn. We have to stop him now before it's too late to turn back.
So you've been doing nuclear research your whole life?
No, not really. At first I wanted to be an aerospace engineer. For me, the Sputnik launch was a good shock, not a bad one. I thought the age when science was used for war was over, and that a glorious age of space exploration was dawning. The year I skipped ahead and got into MIT, Gagarin went into orbit, which made me more excited than ever. Of course, even back then, I knew the space race was just another facet of the Cold War.
Moscow had a leg up on us, and we were desperate to catch up.
I know. But for me, it was a happy time. I joined NASA, got to do the kind of research I loved. Our nation's prestige hinged on our work. They gave us whatever resources we asked for. I knew you could turn a rocket into an ICBM by fitting it with a nuclear warhead, but that didn't bother me so much. It didn't last long, though. The space and nuclear arms races took up enormous sums of money. America beat Russia to the moon, but that's where it ended.
Then came détente.
Exactly. NASA's budget was slashed as a result. My father being a nuclear expert and all, they put me to work on a more obvious deterrent: missiles. At NASA, I'd been researching a locomotion system for lunar exploration. Tires aren't suited to driving around on the moon, you know. And that's how I caught Coldman's eye. But you know, there's something I've never been able to figure out. Is the Cold War really a war, or is it really peace?
Doc, what do you...
People called it a Cold War, but I disagreed. Sure, nuclear stockpiles are increasing, threats are multiplying. The US and the Soviet Union have enough power to destroy the human race 100 times over. But nobody's actually being killed. Small-scale conflicts and proxy wars, maybe, but nuclear deterrence has averted another world war. The world's far more peaceful today than it was before, and the breakthroughs we've made in space exploration thanks to Cold War competition? Fantastic, don't you think?
No. We didn't need to rush into space like that. Going into space may have been mankind's dream, but good people were sacrificed in the scramble.
Maybe so. NASA's definitely got some skeletons in its closet.
Same goes for the nuclear arms race. Atomic testing has killed civilians and exposed thousands to radiation.
Believe me, I know. And now, this. What peace was I trying to protect anyway? The more I think about it, the less I understand. Let's speak in hypotheticals for a minute. Say you wanted to make a clone of yourself.
A clone? Paramedic had the same idea. It's science fiction.
I'm just hypothesizing here. Okay, not a clone then. You have any kids?
Nope.
Wife?
I've never been tied down.
Okay then. So, we're still talking hypotheticals. Say you had a son who'd inherited your genes. Someone with the same combat abilities as you. Would you challenge him to a fight?
Not to sound cocky, but I wouldn't want to do that. No telling who'd survive.
I'll bet. You picked up on the Pupa 5000's combat patterns in seconds.
Only with your advice, Doc.
Well, if anybody could learn to do it just by listening, it'd be easy. But you're a born soldier. Yeah, you must have been born with genes geared for combat. Soldier genes, if you will.
Genes geared for combat? I don't care how advanced their research is. You can't blame genes for everything.
Blame genes? You think it's funny?
What?
You think genes have nothing to do with this body I was born with?
I don't know.
Look, that fear of facing someone of equal ability in combat, imagine that on a strategic scale. That's the concept of nuclear deterrence. The idea is, when all sides are armed with the destructive power of nuclear weapons, they'll avoid nuclear war in order to prevent mutual annihilation.
Doesn't sound all that sophisticated to me.
Exactly. It's so simple in principle. But because it's so simple, whether or not it works properly depends on the people involved. In that sense, what we're looking at now is a malfunction in deterrence theory.
Coldman.
You got it. Please, Snake, don't let deterrence die. Nuclear deterrence means preventing the use of nuclear weapons in conflicts between states. But what about other situations?
Like what?
Terrorism has been on the rise in recent years, from separatist movements to far-left extremists. What would happen if nuclear weapons fell into terrorists' hands? Without a state, that is, without territory of their own, the chances of having nukes used against them are slim. They have no reason to fear a nuclear strike. Conversely, they have no reason to hesitate to use nukes against their adversaries.
You've got a point. All the ICBMs and strategic bombers in the world amount to nothing against a terrorist group.
Right. Of course, this is all still hypothetical. Countries keep their nukes under tight watch. There's no immediate danger of terrorists getting their hands on them. But the day may come when the proposition of nuclear terrorism makes nuclear deterrence theory a dead letter.
Nuclear terrorism. Interesting.
What are we gonna do, Snake? If Peace Walker attacks Mother Base...
Relax. We've got the entire MSF out to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, but Peace Walker's missiles have 1 megaton warheads. The fireball alone would be 1 mile in diameter. Everything in the vicinity of Ground Zero will be vaporized by the heat rays. Then there's the blast, which travels at hundreds of miles per hour. And the fires, and the...
A huge dose of radiation from the initial nuclear reaction.
That too. There won't be a single survivor.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. Look, Doc, you made that thing. You know better than anybody what it's capable of. Right now, you've got to give me a rational, scientific estimate of the damage. If we're talking about a nuclear explosion, it's more than just MSF's problem.
You're right, Snake. Sorry about that. Like I was saying, Mother Base would be wiped out. Any ships in the area could be caught in the blast too. We'd need to send out a warning. The thing to worry about most is the fallout.
The dust of death.
If it goes off over water, the particles will be smaller than with an explosion over land, so the wind will scatter the fallout over a wider area. Clouds will form around the salt crystals in the seawater, causing contaminated rain to fall downwind.
Yeah, got a taste of that myself.
On Bikini Atoll? That's right. The 1954 Castle Bravo test created fallout 300 miles downwind. Poisoned a lot of local residents and ships, so I hear. The yield of Peace Walker's warheads isn't that big, but the amount of fallout will largely depend on weather conditions. It's impossible to make a quick and easy estimate.
If it gets into the trade winds, it could come straight to Costa Rica.
What was it Coldman was saying? About leaving people free to help out? He's out of his mind. What does he think's gonna happen? When they get hit by rain containing high concentrations of fallout, a lot of them will die from the external exposure alone. The rain will seep into the ground, contaminating the water supply and crops. When they ingest the stuff, the internal exposure starts. Strontium-90 and cesium-137 have half-lives of around 30 years. The effects stay with you your entire life. Leukemia, cataracts, dermatitis, cancer. And it affects reproduction, too.
I know.
Even today, 30 years after World War II, thousands of people still suffer from exposure to the bomb. We can't let Coldman create more of them just to prove his point. I know it sounds crazy, but I created Peace Walker so that that kind of thing would never happen again.
Don't worry, Doc. We'll stop it. One way or another. I gotta say, I'm surprised you helped us arm Metal Gear with nukes.
What of it?
Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful and all, but you sure about this? They may be for MSF self-defense, but they're still nukes. It's essentially the same thing as Peace Walker, which you despised.
See, that's exactly it.
What is?
You don't hide your motives. You tell the truth. That's what makes you different from those CIA bastards. They lay on the charm, win you over. And then, when things get hairy, they turn their backs on you.
I'm just telling it like it is.
Which is why I get the feeling that you wouldn't be stupid enough to use them. Okay, I'll come out and say it. I trust you.
You give me too much credit.
You think so? Besides, there's more uses for bipedal locomotion technology than weapons. We make it small enough, and it could have applications in robotics and prosthetic limbs. Maybe one day I'll even be able to walk.
Nice thought.
I want to stand on my own feet, be master of my own fate, and I'll use your strength to help me do it. If you don't mind, of course.
Nah, it's a fair enough deal.
Thanks. People can change, I know. But I trust you, Snake. I trust you to be the guy I know now. The aim of the Peace Walker project is to achieve robust nuclear deterrence across Central America by deploying a new nuclear weapon system along the Caribbean coast. Peace Walker is also the name of the system itself.
A nuclear weapon named Peace. I can just see the look on Kaz's face. So why exactly does this new system need legs in the first place?
Because it's a walker. An unmanned weapon moving under its own power and capable of launching a deterrent strike from anywhere. That's the whole idea behind Peace Walker. The reason Peace Walker is a mobile nuclear weapon system is to maximize its potential as a nuclear deterrent.
How so?
If need be, Peace Walker can stay constantly on the move so that the adversary can't pinpoint its position. That allows it to avoid preemptive enemy strikes.
So you're saying it keeps the retaliation card in play?
Coldman likes to brag about it in this way.
Like a land-based version of an SSBN.
And there's another reason for them to be mobile. Peace Walker also has a self-destruct function.
Why would Peace Walker need a self-destruct function?
You saw it, didn't you, Snake? That sphere on Peace Walker's head?
Yeah?
That's a hydrogen bomb.
What? You're telling me that thing's a thermonuclear device? Do they have any idea what kind of destruction that thing would cause?
I know, it's crazy. I mean, even overkill has its limits. If it's strategic value they want, they could have gone with something smaller. It's like they want a weapon on par with Russia's Tsar Bomba.
This arms race is running way out of control.
It's an evolutionary dead end. A saber-toothed tiger. You can't load a warhead that big on a missile, of course. And no strategic bomber could carry it. That's where Peace Walker comes in.
So, it waltzes into enemy territory carrying a hydrogen bomb and blows itself up. Christ.
The biggest nuclear warhead ever actually detonated was the Soviet RDS-220, nicknamed Tsar Bomba. It had an estimated yield of 57 megatons, 10 times as much power as all the explosives used throughout World War II. The test took place on October 30, 1961, above Novaya Zemlya. The explosion is believed to have created a fireball over 2 miles in diameter. Can you believe that? Like a miniature sun. The explosion was seen as far off as Finland, 600 miles away, and some people even reported windows shattering. The shock wave traveled 3 times around the Earth.
3 times?
Peace Walker is armed with a massive hydrogen bomb, even more destructive than Tsar Bomba. It can sneak into enemy territory, lie low, and in the event of an enemy nuclear strike, detonate itself in retaliation. And the locomotion system that lets it do that? My research. Snake, those legs were supposed to make my dream come true. Now they're about to jump the fence of nuclear deterrence. You have to stop them. I'll apply all my energy into developing weapons and equipment to help you do it.
Sounds like a deal. What made you put an AI into Peace Walker?
Well, for one thing, because it can't be manned. Peace Walker's designed to enter enemy territory and blow itself up, if necessary. You can't put a person inside a weapon that could blow at any time, can you? So we equipped it with an AI instead.
That's strangely humane of you.
And besides, Peace Walker was designed as a bipedal weapon system. You can't imagine how hard it shakes when it walks. It'd turn a man into mush. Plus, when launching a nuclear missile, it has to perform ballistic calculations in real time. See? Because it's always moving.
Hold on. If that's all it does, then a high-performance computer ought to do the job. It doesn't need intelligence.
That's a very good point, Snake. Which brings me to the real reason. Peace Walker needs AI to make decisions regarding nuclear retaliation. It's what ensures perfectly mutual assured destruction.
I've heard all this before. You want a war between machines?
We'd never actually launched the first nuke, of course. It's strictly a counterattack system. Only a politician could make such an illogical decision as starting a nuclear war. Conversely, if an adversary launches a nuke at us, the AI will not fail to retaliate. Therefore, the adversary can't launch. The AI guarantees it.
Even so, launching nukes without authorization?
Boomer captains have the authority to launch if land communications are cut off. It's the same principle.
Not even the captain of a boomer can make that decision alone. The way I heard it, that's the only situation where insubordination is allowed.
Only because humans are imperfect. That's Coldman's line of thinking.
You're saying that machines don't make mistakes? That's a myth. Worse than that, it's blind faith.
We wouldn't put our faith, our fate, into the hands of any ordinary machine. That's what the AI is for. The decision to launch a retaliatory strike requires high-level judgment. You have to take into account not only the state of the war, but the entire world. And sometimes, you need to make a guess based on incomplete information.
Huh. You think an AI can do all that?
Yeah. At least Dr. Strangelove does. Peace Walker is fitted with several close-range weapons. We'd also planned for it to be able to enter enemy territory and self-detonate.
Wonderful. What exactly are we dealing with here?
Well, the flamethrowers for one thing. One in the front and one in the rear. Then there are the S-mines. They're like cluster bombs. It scatters them from its leg hatches. If you see those open, you better clear out quickly. And finally, the rockets. These can travel quite a distance, so stay sharp. On the other hand, it can't fire them from too close. But then again, there are those flamethrowers. It can also use its legs as weapons against any infantry on the ground.
Ouch.
But remember, Peace Walker technically isn't complete. With just the reptile pod, it can only perform relatively simple maneuvers. They've got certain quirks, too. What's more, look carefully, and you should be able to predict which attack is coming next. Snake, you have to stop Peace Walker from launching that nuke.
Calm down. What do I need to do?
To tell you the truth, I don't really know. The mammal pod has probably enhanced both its thought patterns and mobility. The S-mines, rockets, flamethrowers, they're all the same, but I don't know what else to say. You'll just have to stay sharp and watch for how it behaves before each of the attacks.
I'll give it a shot. There's no time for anything else.
Sorry I can't be more helpful. You can do it, Snake.
Okay, but why does Peace Walker need to walk on two legs? I think treads would be good enough.
You'd be wrong. As you know, the terrain in Central America is rugged and complex, especially along the Caribbean coast of Costa Rica. You've got jungles, swamps, mountains, and the only way to get across all that terrain, no matter how rugged, is on legs.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be tough to cross a swamp, even on legs?
It wasn't easy, that's for sure. The reason we picked Costa Rica as a proving ground is because we can test it on every type of terrain.
This Peace Walker project the CIA's talking about. You believed in it, huh?
Yeah, I believed. Actually, maybe I just wanted to believe.
What do you mean?
Here's how Coldman explained it. Peace Walker's a weapon for peace. One to ensure true nuclear deterrence. It'd be the anchor to bring stability to Central America. He told me, the nuclear weapon system you've built will never be used. It will forever stand vigil as an icon of peace. And to achieve that, he needed my bipedal locomotion technology. To be honest, I was flattered.
Flattered?
Wouldn't you be? My colleagues in the scientific community have never taken me seriously. They told me bipedal locomotion was a pipe dream, that it'd never amount to anything. It was the first time anybody recognized my work. How could I not be happy? And besides, it was my chance to surpass my father. To create nukes for peace. Or so I thought anyway.
But Coldman's really going through with it.
Yeah. Makes perfect sense, really. No one would give the project any notice unless they could prove that an unmanned system is capable of launching a nuke.
Why is Coldman going to launch a nuke? If all he wants to do is prove the AI retaliation system works, he doesn't need to put a live warhead on it.
I agree. He could demonstrate the system by launching the missile alone, without a warhead. I asked him the same thing at first. He said there was no point in using a dummy missile. That it'd take an actual nuclear launch to deter potential enemies. Launching the real deal gives him a leg up in negotiations with Langley. That's what he's really after.
Why is Coldman going to launch a nuke? If all he wants to do is prove the AI retaliation system works, he doesn't need to put a live warhead on it.
I agree. He could demonstrate the system by launching the missile alone, without a warhead. I asked him the same thing at first. He said there was no point in using a dummy missile. That it'd take an actual nuclear launch to deter potential enemies. Launching the real deal gives him a leg up in negotiations with Langley. That's what he's really after. I based the bipedal locomotion technology used in Peace Walker on Soviet research. Actually, I'll be honest with you. I stole most of the basic ideas behind it.
Soviet? Bipedal? You mean Granin?
You know him?
Yeah. I met him at his lab in Russia. He helped me out a little bit.
You met him? What were you...
He was head of the Granin Design Bureau. Creator of countless Soviet weapons.
I'd hit a wall in my research at the time. Granin's ideas solved nearly all my problems.
There's nothing unusual about using somebody else's work to further your own research, is there?
As long as you cite it, yeah. But I wasn't in a position to do that. His research was classified at the highest level. Soviet research, no less.
So, you used it without telling anybody?
I wanted to show up my colleagues for once. The ones who never took me seriously. But you reap what you sow. Coldman seized on that vulnerability. Told me if I quit the project, he'd expose my larceny.
He had you by the balls, Doc. How'd you get your hands on Granin's research?
That was also Coldman. He used his agency contacts to get a hold of it.
Giving you stolen information, then using it to blackmail you. Damn.
I knew it was Granin's work the minute I saw it. See, I'd been corresponding with him for a while.
Corresponding?
Letters. Between scientists doing the same kind of research. He always complained that nobody understood his ideas on bipedal locomotion.
Ah, so you're the American friend he was talking about.
Obviously, he didn't write a word about the technology in his letters. Except for one time. If by chance anything should happen to me, I entrust my research to you. Better that than handing it over to these ignorant so-called scientists.
Sounds like him, all right.
Then one day, his papers actually came. It wasn't hard for me to imagine what had happened to him. I felt it was my duty to carry on his work after him. And also...
What?
I thought maybe combining his technology with mine could be a way to bring East and West together, like the docking of Apollo and Soyuz.
It'll never make the history books, and it's still not a reason to plagiarize.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I never had the courage to tell the truth, that's all. I always looked for excuses to cover it up.
Until now.
Huh?
You told me everything. You're no longer a coward.
Metal Gear.
Huh? What about it?
You mumbled that when I first explained about Peace Walker. I'm curious what it meant.
Exactly what it says. Metal Gear. Granin coined the term.
Granin did?
He thought of his technology as the metal gear that meshes infantry with artillery.
I like the sound of that. Metal Gear. It's got a nice ring to it. Better than an outright lie like Peace Walker, anyway.
Those papers the CIA gave you, was there any data on the Shagohod in there?
Shagohod?
A nuclear tank that launches IRBMs. It competed against Granin's system for approval.
Oh, the thing with the rockets. Designed by a guy named Sokolov, right?
What's so funny?
No, I was just remembering some of the commentary Granin added to the Shagohod papers. You should have seen the way he badmouthed it. It was too conservative, too ugly.
I can imagine.
He was so angry when he wrote that, he smeared up the ink. And you know how shoddy the paper is over there to begin with.
I'll bet. That's Granin, all right.
Imagine accelerating the launcher itself to 300 miles an hour to extend the range of an IRBM. As stupid as it sounds, it's a hell of a concept. Who but the Soviets would think of using a tank as the first stage of a rocket? I actually took a cue from the Shagohod when I developed the Pupa.
That hovercraft thing? You stole that one, too?
Give me a little credit. I only borrowed the concept. The technology is original. As it turned out, hover technology wasn't enough to handle all the terrain in Central America. It relied too much on brute force.
But the Shagohod was a major threat. That thing could corner like you wouldn't believe. Built pretty tough, too.
You sure know a lot about it.
It almost did me in. I couldn't forget it if I tried.
Did you in? So you were the one who took it down. Wow! You really are amazing.
I didn't do it alone.
No, seriously, thank you. We might not be here today if they'd begun mass-producing that thing. Then again, they're hard at work now miniaturizing nuclear warheads. Pretty soon they won't even need an accelerated launcher like the Shagohod.
Great. That means they're that much closer to being able to launch from anywhere in the world. Chico called Peace Walker the Basilisco.
Basilisco? Oh, right, Spanish. That's funny. I once used the code name Basilisk for the Peace Walker platform myself.
What for?
The class of lizards called basilisks can walk atop any type of terrain. In a pinch, they can even stand up on two legs and run across water. Perfect name for a system that can walk anywhere in Central America, right? Plus, there are the legends.
What legends?
The basilisks of legend were highly venomous creatures. There's a story told by the ancient Romans. A knight